Hello guys. So this is video 2 about evidence and lead-ins for our video series on CertRed. So in our last video, we created this claim. In the introduction, a character trait Naya shows is toughness. And note that at this point, we do not have a question. You don't need to know what the question is, because all the information we need right now is the claim. But we are moving on to evidence. So for evidence, I need to find a word-for-word quote from our book that I feel supports the claim. And I'll take a quote from page 1, and it says, there was only heat, the sun already baking the air, even though it was long before noon. So if I were to write this in a grad cert, or if I were to write this typing, I would start writing that right now. But in our example, I decided to handwrite this, which means that the next thing I have to do is my lead-in. Again, if I was going to do a grad cert or typing, I can do evidence first and then squeeze the lead-in later. But in order to keep going with our short writing, the next step technically is our lead-in. So I need to give some context to that sentence about there's only sun and heat baking in the air. So this case, we wonder some questions. Questions like, who are they talking about? What's going on? Maybe when is this happening? These are all important questions that I may need to know in order to understand this quote. So the way I usually tell people is try to answer at least one of these questions. Who, what, when, where, or why about your quote. So in this case, I'll try to answer a couple and say, during Naya's journey, the author says. So this answers a who question at Naya and also the author. This answers a what question during Naya's journey. So this might also answer a when question. So when is it during Naya's journey? The book also states that this happened in Sudan. It also says that happened in 2008. So I could have added that to my context as well. I could have said during Naya's journey in Sudan during 2008, the author says, and that all would have been fine for our answer. All right, so now that we have our lead-in, the next thing we have to do is add our evidence, add our quote. So I put a comma, showing we're stopping our lead-in and starting our quote. And to further show we're starting our quote, I add quotation marks. So note that when we're doing the evidence in this class, a quote needs to be a word-for-word quote from the book. So it needs to be written exactly as it's written in the book. So I'll go to my sentence. There was only heat, comma, again, I'm copying exactly from the book, the sun already baking the air. So this quote that I put right here is again word for word from the book. However, if you remember from earlier in the video, that is not the whole quote. There is some more part of the sentence that goes on after it. It says, even though it was long before noon. However, we only need the part of the quote that supports our claim. So I'm just using the part of the quote I think supports our claim and leaving out the rest. So in order to signal to the reader that I'm leaving out the rest, or that there is something left that is not being written in our quote, I use what are called ellipses. And ellipses are something you guys may have seen before, which it just says dot, dot, dot. And again, this shows that there is more in the book, but that is not supporting our claim, and so I did not need to include it. Finally, I end it with quotation marks. And the very last thing I need to do for our evidence is cite our source. So to cite our source, we have to add two things in parentheses. We have to add the author's name, and we also need to add the page number that we found it. So when we're adding our author's name, we just need to add the author's last name. So the author's full name is Linda Sue Park. We're just going to add that last name, which is Park. So again, in parentheses, I'm putting the last name of the author, which is Park. And I'm going to put the page number that I found in the quote, which is page 1. And close parentheses. All right, so that is all you guys need in order to support your support your claim with evidence. In the next video, I'll go over the last skill for a short answer claim or short answer cert response, which is reasoning. All right, so see you guys in that video.